Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Open Mic Open Site, a program of the collaborative community. This is a space where art and voice and vision comes together to build community. So welcome, good evening. So happy that you're here with us today. My name is Kyla Williams Tate. And I, again, am so happy that you're here. I'm the founder of the collaborative community and just happy that we are in this place together to share, to talk about art, to be inspired, and to change our lives as we continue to do all of those things. So, whether you are a creator of art or simply someone who feels something when you experience it, Open Mic, Open Site is the space for you. So, people may be asking again, what is the collaborative community? And Kyla, why are you out here doing this? Well, I created this space and I'm working with and partnering with many other folks who are in the digital inclusion, digital equity, digital opportunity, digital transformation, those who are working in civic technology, technology for public good, anyone who believes in the power of technology and its usefulness and purpose in society in an equitable way. You're welcome to join the collaborative community because we know we have brilliant people that are working in those spaces, but they are also artists in their own right, whether again, contributors, creators, consumers of art, and just wanted to have a space that we can come together and share and create community with one another. So, for those of us who are working in advocacy or justice or digital inclusion, the work can be heavy. We know the work can be heavy. And in the last few months, it's felt incredibly heavy. And I know I'm not the only one that's feeling that way. The systems that we are pushing against are deep and old, and that's hard to break. So, what art does is it reminds us that we are in the right place at the right time and fighting for the right things. Art has the power to transform the spirit. It can heal what systems break. It helps us feel human when the world tries to make us feel like machines. And even though we are for the machines and the devices, we also want to ensure that we're taking care of the human within each of us. And this is not just emotional. Art is not just emotional, it really is physical transformation. Creating or experiencing art can help to lower stress, it can strengthen your immune system, and connect you to something greater than yourself. So, tonight, let's all take a collective breath and allow our senses to breathe with us. So, let your story be heard. We want to see you and hear from you in the comments. And of course, let your creativity roam. I am ready to begin and bring forward our first amazing featured artist of the evening. I would like to welcome to the stage Erin Lorandos. Erin Lorandos. She is best defined by her Dewey Decimal call numbers: mom, librarian, and female writer living in the United States. And yes, she has the tattoos to match, a girl after my own heart. She worked in libraries and other informal education spaces for her entire career and was recently humbled and honored to be managing the Digital Equity Act funding in her adopted home state of Arizona. We'll learn a little bit about what the actual home state is. Now she's looking for new ways to make an impact in these spaces. She's been a writer for a very long time, as long as she can remember, and now focuses mostly on poetry and fiction. Let's again welcome everyone. And let me get it right, Erin Lorandos, correct?
You got it. Thank you so much.
I'm telling you, I try to be a good steward and honor of the pronunciation of names. But again, this retainer I wear from time to time gets in the way of the pronunciation. So thank you
No,
for
you did
your
a great
patience
job.
and graces. I appreciate it, Aaron. So happy that you are here with us today. So your adopted
Sure.
state is Arizona. What's the home state?
Yes, I grew up in Wisconsin, in the Midwest, so just north of you, Kyla. And I've been out here in Arizona about 12 years now. Never going back. Hate winter. This is better. And honestly, it has really shaped my journey, both professionally and as well as personally. I don't think I'd be where I am, if I stayed in Wisconsin. So happy to be in Arizona now.
Wonderful. Well, the stage is now yours, Erin. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Larandos, and as Kayla mentioned, I am a librarian, and we are connectors. We are the original digital navigators, and that comes out in my poetry quite a lot. Tonight's theme of echoes of the past really resonated with me, and I'm so happy that I was able to be a part of this presentation, especially. Not only do the people that I help come out in my poetry, my own personal history comes out in my poetry, national history comes out in my poetry. And I'm also now in an opportunity space where I can address some of the changes that are happening at a federal level and figure out what that will do to my poetry. So I appreciate this opportunity. Let's go ahead and bring up the first poem. This is my catalog of words, another little hint to my librarian background. We'll go to the next slide. This first poem I'd like to share with you is called For HWM. This is actually for my grandfather. My grandparents were very, very involved in my upbringing. I actually lived with them for a number of years, and unfortunately, they have both passed away. And I find an echo of the past in my poetry, being able to explore my relationships with them, and especially my grandfather comes out a lot in my work. So I'd like to share this one with you. This was originally published in an online publication called Bagel Hole, which is unfortunately no longer around. It was a beautiful journal. This is for HWM. I hold your hands still in my hands, edges rough from your days in the dirt, the skin papery soft, rubbed smooth by a spade's handle that's just too old to splinter. Like the injustice of a fragmented mind, shards that still cut through my memories of you, and I will bleed, feeding the soil again. I spent a lot of time as I was growing up in my grandfather's garden and in my grandfather's orchards back in Wisconsin. And he shows up a lot. He is an echo of my past for sure. Let's go to the next slide. This one is for him as well. This reflects time spent again outside on his property. Very formative for me, growing up in the Midwest, growing up on a farmhouse, having that connection and experience being outside with him. This one is called Summer Season, and it was originally published on Bluebird Word. You hold the folded pocket knife from even older denim as you look towards the horizon of this life, saying nothing. And now you open the knife with one hand, deftly pushing the blade out and away, one thumb resting against that sharp edge for just a moment. My eyes are pulled to your left hand that's palming the red, delicious apple, so fresh the tree limb still sways in protest. Tiny moments make up our histories, our past, and they form our futures. Let's go to the next slide, please. And sometimes the scary parts of our history come out in poetry. This one was written and published right after Roe versus Wade was reversed. And that that struck me hard as a woman and as a mother of a daughter and as someone who recognizes those individual rights being stripped away. This one was originally published on Dissident Voice, which is a journal, an online journal that is always responding to current events and current things in the news. This is called Untitled Unheard. Right now, I am reading a book about a rape in a time where the idea should be on the front page of everyone's mind, but it's usually pushed back to page 2 or 3, way below the folds of so much gray matter. How far into the recesses of her mind does the statute of limitations go? Does it go all the way back to 1950 or 51 when her mother's mother was forced into the back corner of the barn and deep into the shadows cast by the gas lights? Does it stretch back to when her own granddaughter's rights began to be stripped away and her legacy was laid bare for us to judge? Let's go to the next slide. This one was written right around the same time in our history, but from a different perspective. How does history view what we're doing today, and how will we be remembered? This was originally published in the Poetry Marathon anthology. This is one of my favorite things that I get to do every year. There is a international poetry marathon that happens where prompts are posted at the top of every hour and poets respond to them. You have to write and publish that poem within an hour. And it's really it's it's a fun experience because it forces you not to edit, and you can go back and edit, of course. But this prompt was about animals, but also about the innate intelligence of animals. And this one struck me as important because the raven is a very intelligent animal, of course, and I was using it as a device of, the raven being history watching us, and kind of exploring how we're reacting in the moment. This is called "And Raven Was Silent." On the day the world turned dark, 50 years became dust under our feet. Again, we marched for freedoms we had yesterday, and tears flowed through smoke and anger. She, Black Beauty, keen eye, looked the other way when reason lost out to returns, and the only color the men saw was power. The spirits of our mothers no longer speak to us. We are now the lost souls, and Raven is silent. Let's go to the next slide, please. This one shifts away from public history and personal history, but still connects to our experiences connecting with each other. This one is actually written for a patron that I used to help in the library when I was a digital navigator. He would come in every single week for our tech help time. We called it the hotspot before that was a word that was used in other ways. And he would just come and hang out with me the entire time. Sometimes he had questions, sometimes he didn't, but he was really looking for personal connection. And as I got to know him better, I got to know his own personal history. And he shared with me that he was a practitioner of the Baha'i faith, which is a gorgeous way of interacting with the world. And there was, on this day that he told me the story that prompted this poem, he was telling me about this other gentleman who sometimes came into the library. And he had the feeling that that other guy wouldn't like him because they had differing faiths. And it really stuck with me because what is more important than connection, right? Everyone in this world is different, and we can find common ground no matter what. So this one is called Baha'i. I tell you this now, he says, because you are my daughter. What makes the flower white like your skin while mine is dark? What makes leaves green? And that man over there, he won't talk to me because I think it is because I am not like him. We pray to different gods when we really just need to love. And I've held that conversation in my heart this whole time. And I try to remind myself that that's all we need, to love each other. Let's go to the next slide. So these next couple of poems are very different. These are what are called ekphrastic poems, which is a way of writing about other art and using that other art to inform your work, whether it be poetry or longer prose, etc. And this one was written in response to the series of paintings that you see on the screen here. These are The Women of the Prairie by Harvey Dunn. And this one I am trying to emulate a poet's style. His name is Paul Violi. And he has a series of poems where they are acrostic, but he's not only considering what's on the screen and what's in the frame itself, but what's happening outside of the frame. What's happening as that woman is looking off into the distance, or, you know, where is this woman going after she pumps her water, right? And so it's kind of a different way of looking at an echo, you know, of the past, because of course the paintings are frozen in time, but we can imagine what's happening off screen. So this one's a little bit more tongue in cheek, a little bit sillier. This is The Women of the Prairie Talk Back. Mama, I see you there, looking out over that distant horizon, that prairie song's tune not quite to your liking. Now even Zula knows your precious firstborn. Her sister Beulah, long gone, died of the dysentery a few days out from Independence. Such a pity. She was a good shot too. Now, there's little Wesley. He's playing at innocence. Wait, what's he got there? Wesley, stop it. Wesley, those are Mama's prize zucchinis. Oh well. Mama, just go back to staring at the horizon and dreaming that American dream. Your sister's waiting in the next frame. There's Esther pumping water, brown from the rust that courses through strong women's veins. And there's Maybelle on the left, driving the cattle, all alone for all eternity. Let's go to the next slide. This relates. I have written about these specific paintings another time, another acrostic poem. So I'd like to share with you another version of the same poem, basically. If we can bring up the example. This was published on a very, very brief blog that I posted at the beginning of the pandemic. So pardon the different presentation here, but we have a poem after Harvey Dunn and his Women of the Prairie. A woman walks across the captured prairie. The chickens, white like her shirt, catch our eye, and the grain, which I imagine is fallen. Clouds gather, foretelling a rough life ahead, because we can see with perfect clarity into the next 100 years, way out, past the horizon and the limits of this painting. Still, life looked pretty good way back then. And I do want to share with you a little bit of history around this as well. This poem was inspired by one of the paintings, as I mentioned, of Harvey Dunn's Women of the Prairie series. And my great-grandmother, whose name was Zula, actually painted her own version of these paintings back in the 1970s, approximately, when she was in her 70s. And if we scroll back up to the top of this page, we can see her versions of the paintings that you saw on the previous slide. So as you can see, they're not quite the same. Everyone is able to take the art and make it their own. And I wanted to share those with you. Those are hanging in my house. If we scroll back down to the bottom, sorry for the whiplash, I do apologize. I'd like to share with you another version of the same painting that I found when I wrote this poem that I just read. This is another version of the same story, right? And when I was writing this version of the poem, I did some research about Dunn's work, and I found out that they were originally painted around the time of the 1918 flu pandemic, or shortly thereafter. And I thought it was an apt connection at the time, since I was writing this at the beginning of our most recent pandemic. And I wanted to give credit to Alison McClay, who painted that beautiful version that you see on the screen here. Let's go back to the other slides, please. And one last one that I have to share, and this is for you, Kyla. I want to thank you for being a light and being hope in this world, bringing us all together. This has been an amazing experience. I wrote this one right before I finally got to meet Kyla in person at Net Inclusion, which was hosted here in Phoenix a few weeks back. This is called Hope. Hope. She said, hope is a thing with feathers. I think hope is a thing with roots. It must be cultivated, cared for, to grow. Make space for hope in your soul garden, next to the forget-me-nots and time. In time, it will become an invasive species, one which cannot be killed. Thank you so much.
Erin, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your gifts, sharing such beautiful stories and such beautiful memories. I have been trying to hold the tears back because there were so many things that you covered in your presentation and sharing of your words that one I didn't know about you, and now I feel even more connected to you. So thank you so much for being vulnerable enough to open up this piece of you to this audience and whomever else is going to watch this in the months and maybe years to come. Thank you again.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Um, I did not grow up with my grandfather on either side, right? And you started your storytelling around how important your grandfather was, and how a lot of your poetry reflects those memories. Share a little bit more about your grandfather. What was his name? Tell us who granddaddy was. We would like to know. I think I would like to know.
I would be happy to share. Honestly, he was the smartest person I've ever met, so I'm happy to talk about him. So, my grandfather's name was Harold Wesley Montross, HWM, that you heard in that first poem. And he was born in 1920 on a little farm in Iowa and ended up leaving that farm, going on to get his PhD. He fought in World War II in the Pacific. He actually enlisted so that he could finish college before he went. He went to officers training school in Chicago on Navy Pier, met my grandmother, got married. They were married their entire lives. She's from Chicago. So can you imagine this beautiful story, this farmer boy from Iowa meeting this beautiful city girl, going to the theater and all that. They went on 10 dates before he asked her to marry him. And of course, this was the beginning of World War II, so everything's a little sped up, right? But then she went back home to meet his family, and you can imagine her stepping out of the car in her 4-inch heels, ready from the streets of Chicago, sunk down into that dirt on that Iowa farm. She's thinking to herself, what did I get myself into? But they made a beautiful life. They adopted both my mom and my aunt. They were biological twins that they adopted when they decided, they wanted to have kiddos and couldn't have them themselves. And as I said, stayed, committed to each other their whole lives. And it's just a beautiful story, and one that I've always seen as a, hashtag goals, right? To have that kind of deep love and commitment to another person. And I'm happy, in my relationship, and my husband got to meet my grandparents. We've been together since we were in middle school. So so he got to meet them too, and they were formative in both of our lives, which was a wonderful thing to be able to share. So thank you for letting me tell a little bit more about him.
Oh, I
And
love that.
he did pass away in 2020. So we've been without him
Mm.
for 5 years now. So
May he rest. And you've certainly have honored him beautifully in this evening.
thank
Now
you.
let's fast forward to the poem that one your was it your grand you said your grandmother who did I catch that story right
The
of
paintings.
the paintings.
All right. So my great grandmother, that same grandpa's mom, farm wife in Iowa, when she was in her late 60s and 70s, she picked up painting. And those paintings that you saw on the screen were her copies of Harvey Dunn's paintings. Now she did other things as well, but she looked at his work and said, "Wow, that's cool. I want to do that." And so she painted it by looking at it. It wasn't like a paint by number or anything like that. She just, copied it effectively. And yeah, she didn't start painting until she was in her 70s, but every person in our family has one, at least one or more of her paintings hanging in their house. And I'm kind of happy. I'm the only kid and the only grandkid on one side, so a lot of them will come to me eventually.
Mhm.
So I'll have a whole house full of my great grandmother's paintings.
I love that. What a beautiful story. Yet another story with one of your family members, your ancestors, that is connected to this space. And you are keeping their legacy alive through this storytelling. I'm so honored to be able to bear witness and share space with you today and learn these
Thank you.
stories. I have on my storytelling t shirt today. So this is apropos, I think, for the moment. And as we talk about the echoes of the past, what a wonderful opportunity to show that those echoes reverberate into the present, into the future. So being able to capture the stories, protect the stories, nurture them is a way to keep those vibrations strongly moving forward. So, and poetry is a perfect way to do that. As someone who loves poetry and does poetry herself, I feel like it's one of those like classic art forms that sometimes doesn't get all the love. You know, it's not as flashy, you know, and maybe in the performance space, but
Mhm.
just in the general reading and the consuming of words, and the presentation that you did tonight. Um, it was gentle, it was strong, it was so appropriate for the moment. Echoes of the past, I feel it. I'm tingly, Erin. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
If folks are looking to connect with you, if they want to get you to curate a poem for them or show up in their space to do a reading, where can they find you at?
Definitely. So I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm the only Erin Lorandos in the world. So if you find one, you've got me. I can share in the chat here once I'm off screen my personal website as well, which is my catalog of words, locations of places where things get published. So I appreciate that opportunity so much and hope to stay connected as I move into my next adventure.
Indeed. Thank you again, Erin.
Thank you.
All right. I hope y'all are feeling the tingles too. This was such a beautiful moment of word sharing. I think that words are so transformative, and when you place them intentionally and rhythmically or playfully in a whimsical way, uh, it just helps them to stand out even more on their own. So, more words, please, we'll say. So, it's been an incredible evening so far, and thanks for all the folks who are tuned in. I see you in the comments, and show some love to Erin in the comments because she did a wonderful job presenting her beautiful poetry. So I hope that you're feeling moved because I'm feeling moved and inspired. And I want to invite each of you who are watching and those who will watch in the future to keep showing up and showing out for art. Keep showing up and showing out for art. Our next series of open mics, we do this every month, the last Wednesday of the month, 6 p.m. Central Time, on our Collaborative Community YouTube channel, always live. So we invite you to join us, or we invite you to be a featured artist yourself. So I wanted to talk about our next three open mic open sites and what the themes are. So if folks are thinking about it, maybe these themes speak to you specifically, and you can be our next featured artist. So in July, our next open mic, open site in July is about freedom in expression. It's a tribute to independence, personal, creative, political, and a reminder that your voice matters, unfiltered and unapologetic. So, freedom in expression is the theme for July. In August, we are going to be moved by nature's palette. From the forest to the ocean to the city streets, nature really does inspire everything from color to sound to movement. So we'll be celebrating the beauty, the chaos, and the interconnectedness of the world around us because it's nature's palette. And then in September, our theme will be dreamscapes and fantasies. So think surreal, whimsical, magical. Let's tap into our imagination and possibility and give ourselves permission to dream beyond what actually exists. So September's theme is dreamscapes and fantasy. So mark your calendars, bring a friend, and let's keep creating together. Last Wednesday of every month, 6 p.m. Central, virtually. We're always looking for featured artists. And certainly, if you're interested in joining the collaborative community, because why not? One, it's low commitment. You just show up, participate if you want to, listen if you want to, or not. Low commitment, but certainly full of love. It's free, there's no membership charge, and we are meeting new people every single day, creating even more community and opportunities to share. So we invite you to consider joining the collaborative community and or consider being a featured artist on open mic open site, because all art forms are welcome and the virtual stage is yours. And in this wonderful platform, we can do music, we can do videos, we can do art presentations, we can do whatever it is you want to do, however you want to share. We can figure out a way and use our technology skills to the best of our ability to ensure that that happens. So let's get back into it. I am so pleased to introduce our next featured artist, Dr. Marionette, Mariette, okay, let me get it right. Dr. Mariette Ayala. Let me get that together. Mariette Ayala is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction at Tech Goes Home, where she collaborates with program and operations teams to support partners in digital learning, training, and educational content. She oversees all of Tech Go Home's digital literacy training materials for learners and instructors, ensuring they are high quality, accessible, and learner centered, while also maintaining program quality and supporting the evaluation of learning gains. Dr. Ayala carefully curates the best digital learning resources to provide impactful, inclusive educational experiences. Dr. Ayala holds a PhD in urban education, leadership, and policy from UMass Boston, an MA in student affairs and higher education from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. She enjoys working as an advocate for underrepresented youth in her community and hopes for her research to support them and their families. Dr. Ayala has published articles on urban serving institutions and youth activism. Her research focuses on technology, social justice, art, the Haitian diaspora, family engagement, and urban education policy. Please welcome to our virtual stage Dr. Mariette Ayala.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me into this space. I am very grateful to share this opportunity, especially on Digital Equity Day here in Massachusetts. So, all of the great, beautiful things that I am passionate about, that I share a love for, all come together in one day. So, yes, it couldn't be better timing. Thank you so much. So, I will get started and tell you all about how I view our theme tonight. So, with my echoes of the past, there are a few different categories in which tell my story and share what I believe have made me who I am today. So, in the next slide, you will see an overview. So, I'm going to start today by looking at my echoes and my past, some stories that show who I am and what defines me. And then I think about the things that reverberate in my mind: love, faith, my family, my community, and then pushing into the future. And so you're going to be able to see my work in art form. So I will start off at the next slide by looking into my past. When I was just 6 years old, my parents separated, but my mother wanted me to always know where I came from. I come from an amazing mother, a mother in which I began to understand and grew to love her spirit and her tenacity the more I grew up and the more I became a mom myself. And so I grew up with a mom who was a single mom of 5 children. Despite being a single mom of 5 children, she took in so many people into her home, including two of my stepbrothers and three of my cousins. And she raised us all under one roof. I didn't even know who was half siblings or who were my full siblings until I was at the doctor's when I was like a teenager. And then the doctor's like, they're not your siblings. My mother's like, the heck they ain't. And that's when I really learned what real family was and what real community was. So living in my home was always interesting. Later on, I would come to see that people would look at me when I reached higher education and they would say, you're marginalized, you're poor, you're lower class, you're vulnerable. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because every single summer, I was in Haiti. As soon as the bells were out, my mother was like, what summer camp? We're going to Haiti. We got on the plane and we went straight to Haiti. And as you went through the streets, you see in the first picture and the second picture on the top, there was always art displayed. Most of the signage in Haiti were not made from mass printing shops. They were all hand painted by local artists. They're still hand painted by local artists. You pass by elementary schools, you pass by businesses, lotto shops, stores, and they're mostly concrete buildings heavily painted with beautiful colors. And I would be mesmerized as I drove. Um, I didn't drive. I cannot drive in Haiti. That's absolutely impossible. You have to be a master driver to do that. But as I rode in the car and saw beautiful paintings that really encapsulated the rich artistry in Haiti and the rich resilience of Haiti. And I was just like, I always wanted a piece of this art. One of the paintings that I got from Haiti is right here. Every single time I traveled and went to different places, I started to bring back pieces of art because some people like postcards. That's great. You might like keychains. That's great. But I always wanted a piece that could make me smile and remember the people. So in the bottom, you'll see a picture of me and my husband. And I try to specifically um, work with local artists. And this right here is in Thailand, and this artist was selling me two of her beautiful pieces. In the next slide, you'll see a few more examples of that. So you see me and my husband right here on the left with a Japanese artist. And then you also see another painting, which is my favorite painting from when I was in Malaysia. It's just an absolute gorgeous painting. And then what was so interesting to me is as much as I loved art, I wasn't consuming it and producing it in a way that I should. So a little bit of background. I was part of an art club when I was in elementary school. And because I was part of the art club, they were partnering with the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. And there I was in the fourth grade with a piece in the Museum of Fine Arts. I didn't understand the magnitude and the beauty and the significance. But then by the time I was in art club at the Boys and Girls Club, by my junior year, we worked on a big mural with over 20 youth. And then all of the 20 youth came from the 5 Boys and Girls Club of Boston to put together a mural that would be displayed in a big way outside of the Museum of Fine Arts again. And then so to be featured twice was absolutely beautiful. But then there was a huge gap from 11th grade up until this point in my master's program where I did not produce art. And I started to realize it was something I needed. So on the next slide, you'll see how I started off. I came from a master's program in which I would say was very racist. The faculty was racist. There was a lot of institutionalized racism, and there was a lot of it was suppressed. So this is my first year outside of my master's program when I started to think there's so much beauty and art just within me. It's stuck inside of my heart and my mind, and I want people to feel and understand the beauties of the things that have impacted me. So the first piece I did right here was just 3 canvases put together, and it was something that I call my path. And this represents just a woman walking down the street. And one thing that, if some of you may have seen in footage in countries in Africa, in South America even, but a lot in the Caribbean, women carry baskets on their head. Not just small baskets, tall baskets, sometimes baskets half their height, double their weight, and they do it with grace, with their hands down. And they do it on terrain that's very rocky. And I thought about my experience as a scholar, and I thought about the weight that women in America, women of color in America, consistently have to balance on their head and their shoulders with grace while walking on tough terrain. And that's why I chose this as my first piece. The next painting, speaking more about the pain that could be within you if you don't let it out, I painted this one. I grew up in a very dangerous neighborhood, a neighborhood that I love, but it's not always represented the way people think when they think of Boston. Boston is very segregated, and whether people like to consume this knowledge or not, there's many, many, many northern version examples of racism within Boston. And so, because the neighborhoods are so segregated, you could see the skyline right from where you're living, but you're living in a very different condition. So I could come home sometimes, there'd be do not cross signs right on my porch, right on my bus stop. And there would be doves painted on the ground from previous incidents of people being murdered right in the path that I walked to school. And while so many people like to glamorize the streets, glamorize the hood, it was something that was very hard for me to consume. So with money being what people say the root of all evil, and so many people believing that the places that I grew up and the who I was a example of the school to prison pipeline or the cradle to prison pipeline, I decided that I was going to put that all in the picture from the root to the end. And then I was just not going to let it consume me anymore. And I was just like, I'm sick of poverty. I'm sick of letting all of these preconceived notions be part of me. And I was going to let it out, and I was going to be free. So we're going to take it to, thank you so much. There's so much beautiful comments. I'm going to go into the next painting. I think that I'm going to just give you guys a little hint of what's coming later. You'll see a woman here with 2 children, a boy and a girl. And as I released through my art the things that were painful for me, I was able to let in better, beautiful things like my faith. This concept of this painting, sometimes you don't even realize where you draw inspiration from. But I believe that there's many different examples of hands coming out of the sky and guiding people. But I believe that in this instance, that my faith was helping me from one step to the next. But this also connected with my mom and how she never knew exactly how she was going to get the next thing. But she always would tell me, I'm a blessed woman. I'm going to be okay. I'm a blessed woman. I'd be like, what do you mean? I'd be like, oh, happy Mother's Day, Mom. I'll give you $500. And then she gives it to someone in need and she get more is going to come. I'm like, not for me. Little funny joke right there, but it always does. But this just represents a woman of faith, just taking the next step, not knowing how they're going to get there, but not letting things get in their way. We'll go to the next one. I grew up with a mom who always had white skin tone. She never got to meet her dad, and we never really knew why. But because my mother, although she was born in Haiti, my father was born in Haiti, my mother presents as a white woman. And it wasn't until later on in life that we found out that she was, in fact, white through doing an ancestry test. But she was always born, raised in Haiti. Um, and I would look at her when I was younger. And because of colorism in the Caribbean and the United States, I would always think, I'm not as beautiful as her. So, right here, this represents a woman with these two tones. I have the darker skin color representing my father, and then the lighter upper half of her face representing me. But I was always looking at this white flower, which was my mother, and just thinking, you're so beautiful. Why can't I look like you? Why can't my hair look like yours? But the reason why I call this piece Woman, You Are Beautiful is because I had to realize that while I was admiring her, she was within me and so many other more beautiful attributes that made me who I am. So as you can see in the afro of the woman is the white flower that she's looking at, but with so much more flowers. So in the next painting, I started to talk more about resilience of women. The reason why I started to show the makings of some of these paintings is because some people like the background and the behind the scenes, like how did this painting come to be and how did it come to look this way? Yes, there are. So many of them were multiple piece panels, but it was also because your girl was on the bus picking up canvases. I didn't have Amazon yet. But it was also a way to connect and a way to display my art. And so right here, you'll see a woman. And the first thing is there was first people would start to critique the type of makeup that women of color could wear and what colors they were allowed. So I chose a bold blue makeup to show this woman and the airiness of the woman. But as you can see, the different strains of her hair was made of feathers. And in the next slide, you'll see how it finished off. But it took time to paint each of these feathers and the lines one by one. And I chose feathers for her hair because sometimes people look at feathers and think they're weak, they're soft, they float, they can't carry weight. But together, feathers are really resilient, especially in water, and they're meant to fly. So I said feathers are meant to fly, and I really wanted this piece to represent the strength of a woman. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide. I started to share my art more here. And as I started to share my art more here, people started to resonate with me and they shared their stories with me. And in 1 year, I had 2 friends who had mothers that was going through breast cancer. One lost the mom, one didn't. But in this piece, it was to show mothers and daughters and the community of them coming together and just surrounding each other with love and just being part of the story together. So it was just showing the love and the support that could come together when people are working as a community and embracing one person over their struggle. In the next slide, this speaks more about women in community. And touching back to the previous art that was that I was connecting with, these are different head wraps that I would connect to, because when women wore baskets on their head in Haiti, they would also put a wrap underneath. And because I really love the different patterns that was represented in African culture and Caribbean culture, I decided to honor that. And this piece took a full 3 weeks to paint, and each head wrap took about 1 to 2 weeks to work on. But it was just to represent women in community and women coming together and supporting each other. And then the next slide, this is how it can be displayed as well. And this was displayed on easels to show the difference of it together versus apart. Next slide. This piece is called Cacao Nib, sorry. And this is to speak more towards colorism within the Haitian diaspora. And I started to think the most beautiful part of our community can be the different range in skin tones. And when I thought about the colorism and the skin tone that people tend to shy away from, like the skin tone of my father, people try to turn away from it or they think it's not beautiful. But then I started to think of it as the center of a sunflower and the best part of what it produces. And so you'll see that this painting is right to represent the beauty and that skin tone and just right up front and center of the sunflower. Next slide. This also connects with the Haitian diaspora, the African American diaspora, and the way that beauty is represented for African queens and African American queens, and how our beauty and our standards and the weight that we carry can be represented in two different ways. So, one is through a very high scarf. Sometimes when people try to build head wraps on their head, they use up to 2 to 3 scarves in order to mold this just perfect head wrap. And so that was to represent the one on the left, and on the right was multiple crowns coming together. But as you can see, they were both at the same height. So they were both just as majestic. Next slide. This is how it could be displayed, just to give you ideas of dimension. And then the next slide. This was an opportunity, speaking of echoes of the past. My pastor was part of my life for over 20 years, and he passed away tragically and suddenly. And this is more examples of how I use art as healing. On the left, underneath, the first picture of him, it says Obeique, which means to trust and obey. And then in the middle, that was in Haitian Creole. And then the set in the middle says "C'est grâce au Seigneur," which is "It's by the grace of God." And so this just represents him and his experience and his impact in the community and him being a pioneer and his legacy. Next slide, because I want to leave space for questions. I started to dive more into the art. What did Mariette do? She got her master's. And then after that, she got into her PhD. And then she again pulled away from the art, but the art was still being part of her. And then what I was talking about earlier is how art can still be part of you, even when you don't realize it. So little did I know, I was falling in love with these pieces in California, and then they would later continue to be in my mind and then push next into my future artwork. So on the next painting, I wanted to talk about immigration and what's happening right now in our community, and how so many migrants and refugees are not being respected and loved the way that they should be, the way a community should take them in. And the monarch butterfly represents, thank you, the monarch butterfly represents allyship in immigration. And what's interesting is in this piece, I tried to take some pictures and zoom in, but if you look at the veins of the butterfly, if you look really closely, you'll be able to see that there are silhouettes of people, of family, people working, people reuniting. love coming together, marriages. And these different silhouettes, there's 21 of them. They're in gold, and it shows the stories of migration that are carried in the butterflies, the wings of the butterfly. Next one. And this is the entire piece. Next slide. This is also connected to it. This is the making of the second one. And I wanted to show the beauty and resilience in the community of people coming together to support immigration, and to support migrants. And as you can see, the stem of the rose is three people coming together, and the wings of their butterflies all forming a rose. And it just shows that there's beauty and resilience, there's strength in numbers, and how we could all do this together. By selling the prints of this painting, in one day I was able to fundraise close to $6,000 for um, students who are for students to get scholarships who are undocumented. And in the next slide, you'll see how they were displayed and how it all came together for the final piece. But in the next slide, you'll see the students who were just impacted. And then I started to realize even more that if I don't keep my art to myself and I push it out there, how many people, stories that I could connect with. So in the final part, in the next slide, I started to say, now I'm a mom. My mom impacted me so much and I love her so much. And I was like, as I use this art for healing, I'm not going to keep it from my children. I started at a young age putting my daughter in art classes. If you ask me, she's Picasso. And then the next slide, you'll see my son, who's autistic, but is able to use art in order to touch and reach my heart in ways that he can't communicate with me verbally. And then in the final slide, you'll see more different ways that they are using their art. And then in the final real slide, you'll see then me taking their pieces and putting them on display, because I'm not going to wait 30 years like I waited for mine. I'm going to show it today. Thank you.
Dr. Ayala, what an amazing journey you have shared with us this evening.
It could have been 3 presentations.
It was amazing. We will take it as it was delivered, because that was what was in your heart, and those words, I'm sure, and those pieces are definitely going to stay with me and those of us who are watching this live and will see this video later after the broadcast. I had a couple of questions for you quickly before we move to the end of our broadcast. The first is, the internalization of anger and rage around systemic injustice and racism that you
Yeah.
have uh, personally experienced through the educational space and just through life. And so you showed that painting where you were regurgitating it all out of your body to kind of to free yourself. How is the art now supporting you in this environment where there's lots of noise around DEI and some of those other terms that would include someone that looks like you or has a ethnic background like you? I'm interested how art is helping to act as a salve in that way.
Well, I love that I do curriculum design now. And I'm able to fight back with how I'm supporting and teaching my community. So, being the director of curriculum and instruction now, I'm able to develop curriculum and put it in creative ways. Whether it's like, hey, how can we incorporate digital storytelling in our community spaces to show people how they could collaborate and work together? And there's so much more I could say about that, but I'm checking the time in case you have another question.
And my second question is, when we met during that inclusion, because y'all, we just met during that inclusion 2025, and she attended my visions session
It was
and said,
amazing.
I had things to say, but I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know. And so I was like, well, we're going to feature you, and you're going to be able to have some time to say all the things. You shared that you've used your art and you've, stated here to raise money for programming. And as we think about like sustainability opportunities for our
Yeah.
digital inclusion programs or other kind of justice related programs. Talk about that journey. How did you get to that space?
Well, um, quickly, I was able to get prints of the art. And then what's also important is framing it. So I would go to buy, even if it was cheap frames, just as long as it was a glass frame. You could also get reclaimed frames too. Like the frames you saw at the end with the wooden and the dots, those are $1.25 each, right? So it's like it's how you display it and the story that it tells. And then each day, whether it's displayed on someone's desk or behind them. It just reminds them that they're contributing to the work, and they understand that by having a piece of the art rather than the whole art to themselves, more people can contribute to the greater good and be
I,
part of it.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Again, fighting the tears. Like I can't be a host, y'all, if y'all keep making me cry off camera. The beauty in your art and your storytelling, again, t-shirt storytelling, amazing, inspirational. My heart is so full right now. And I know the people who are watching and will see this later will agree that this has just been yet another beautiful episode of Open Mic, Open Site. And exactly how you shared and what you shared is what we need today. It has certainly inspired me and lifted my spirit. So thank you so much for being again vulnerable and showing us the very tender and beautiful sides of you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And just like that, y'all, we've come to the end of yet another beautiful night. Thank you to every single person who shared, listened, clapped, nodded, or just showed up. This is what community looks like. A huge thank you to our featured guests tonight, Aaron and Dr. Ayala, for gracing this space with your brilliance and your truth. And of course, a big round of applause for the folks behind the scenes. Shout out to Jordan, who makes this magic happen. The heart and hands of the collaborative community are in full effect here. We are piecemealing this thing together, and it seems to be working out okay. If tonight moved you, inspired you, or made you feel a little bit more connected, we again invite you to join us. The collaborative is building something special, and your energy is certainly part of that. You can learn more and get involved at collaborativecommunity.org. And just like that, popped up on the screen, magic of the digital space. So until next time, I am your host, Kyla Williams Tate, and founder of the Collaborative Community. Keep creating, keep dreaming, and keep showing up for yourself and for each other. Have a good evening.